Imagine walking into two different homes. In the first home, every disagreement sounds the same. It's your fault. You started it. If you hadn't, you always, you never. Every problem has an accused. Every mistake has a dependent. Every conversation becomes a search for someone to blame. Now imagine another home. There are still disagreements. There are still disappointments. There are still difficult seasons, but the language is different. I could have handled that better. I understand why that hurt you. I'll take responsibility for my part. What can we do differently next time? The problems may be similar, but the culture is completely different. One home is built on blame. The other is built on accountability. And that difference changes everything. There's an old Akan proverb from West Africa that says, "The one who climbs a good tree deserves a push." The proverb reminds us that people naturally support those who pursue what is right. Marriage is no different. When a husband consistently chooses accountability, he makes it easier for his wife to trust him, cooperate with him, and grow alongside him. The strongest men are not those who never make mistakes. The strongest men are those who never stop taking responsibility for them. That is why the seventh timeless law is this: a mature husband does not waste his energy protecting his ego. He uses energy protecting his integrity. Special greetings to you, honorable gentlemen of this powerful guild. Wherever you're watching us from around the world, I welcome you to this special edition. As hinted in the last video, today's section will focus on law number 7, which is accountability, a husband's greatest strength. But before we dive into that, may I ask you to please take a moment to subscribe to our channel? Also, tap on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Thank you. On a first note is a fundamental principle of leadership: responsibility. Responsibility is the foundation of leadership. Every husband wants influence. He wants his wife to trust his judgment. He wants his children to respect his example. He wants his home to be stable. But influence is never demanded. It is earned. And one of the fastest ways to lose influence is to avoid responsibility. Many men mistakenly believe accountability weakens authority. The opposite is true. People naturally follow leaders who can honestly acknowledge both their strengths and their shortcomings. In families, as in organizations, accountability creates credibility. Behavioral scientists who study leadership have repeatedly found that leaders who admit mistakes, accept responsibility, and demonstrate consistency tend to earn higher levels of trust and commitment than those who habitually shift blame. In marriage, the same principle applies. A husband's willingness to own his actions strengthens his moral authority because his words and behavior remain aligned. Leadership is not about appearing flawless. It is about being trustworthy. An old German proverb wisely says, "He who excuses himself accuses himself." The mature husband understands that excuses may protect his pride for a moment, but accountability protects his marriage for years. Point number 2, why blame is so tempting. When something goes wrong, the human mind naturally looks for a cause. That instinct is useful. It helps us learn. But under emotional pressure, it often becomes something unhealthy. Instead of asking, "What happened?" we begin asking, "Whose fault is this?" The search for understanding turns into a search for someone to blame. Blame offers temporary relief. Accountability produces lasting growth. Imagine a husband who loses his temper after a stressful day at work. He comes home frustrated. His wife asks an innocent question. He snaps. Later he says, "I'm sorry, but work has been impossible lately." Work may explain his emotional state. It does not excuse his behavior. Mature husbands learn to distinguish between explanations and excuses. Explanations create understanding. Excuses avoid responsibility. As an old Spanish proverb reminds us, he who has excuses has little else. What then should be the best practice? Own your part, even when it is not the whole story. One of the most remarkable habits of emotionally intelligent husbands is this: they do not wait until they are 100% responsible before accepting responsibility. They begin with the part that is theirs. Consider a disagreement about household finances. Perhaps both husband and wife contributed to the problem. An immature husband immediately lists everything his wife did wrong. A mature husband begins elsewhere. He asks, "What did I contribute to this situation?" Perhaps he failed to communicate clearly. Perhaps he postponed an important discussion. Perhaps he made assumptions instead of asking questions. Perhaps he became defensive too quickly. By owning his part first, he changes the emotional atmosphere of the conversation. Instead of creating resistance, he creates openness. Accountability has a remarkable quality. It often inspires accountability in return. A Japanese proverb teaches, "The reverse side also has a reverse side." Every conflict has more than one perspective. The husband who remembers that becomes slower to accuse and quicker to reflect. For example, let's consider the case of a business that almost cost a marriage. For nearly 2 years, Samuel devoted every waking hour to building his business. He left home before sunrise. He returned long after dinner. Even when he was physically present, his attention remained fixed on emails, phone calls, and financial projections. He convinced himself, "Every sacrifice was for my family. My wife rarely complained. But one evening, after putting the children to bed alone once again, she quietly said, "I feel like I'm raising this family without you." Samuel immediately felt defensive. "I'm doing this for us." The words came quickly because they had become his shield. Then he noticed something. She wasn't criticizing his ambition. She was grieving his absence. That realization changed everything. Instead of defending himself, Samuel said, "You're right about something I've been refusing to admit. I've been providing for this family, but I haven't been fully present in it. That's my responsibility." His wife did not expect perfection. She simply wanted honesty. Together, they redesigned his schedule. He protected 2 evenings each week for family time. He stopped answering routine business calls during dinner. Within months, the atmosphere in their home changed. The business continued to grow. So did the marriage. Samuel learned that success at work means very little if it quietly creates failure at home. For example, let's consider the case of a father who chose reflection over defensiveness. Patrick believed he was a good listener. His wife believed otherwise. Whenever she raised concerns, he interrupted before she finished speaking. One evening, she finally said, "You don't listen to understand me, you listen to defend yourself." Patrick's first instinct was to argue. That's not true. But instead of reacting, he asked himself a difficult question. What if there's some truth in what she's saying? Over the following week, I paid close attention to my own conversations. To my surprise, I discovered she was right. I often interrupted. I completed her sentences. I assumed I already knew what she was going to say. The next weekend, he sat beside her and said, "I've been watching myself this week. I owe you an apology. You were right. I've been listening to respond instead of listening to understand." His wife smiled, not because he was perfect, but because he was teachable. That conversation became a turning point in their marriage. As an old Indian proverb says, "The tree that bends survives the storm." The husband who remains teachable continues to grow long after others become rigid. Point number 4, the courage to invite feedback. Many husbands fear criticism because they associate with failure. Mature husbands see it differently. Feedback is information. Information creates growth. Some of the strongest marriages include a simple habit. Every so often, the husband asks, "Is there anything I'm doing that makes it harder to be married to me?" That question requires courage, but it also communicates something powerful. Your experience matters to me. Marriage researchers consistently note that couples who cultivate curiosity about each other's experiences are better equipped to adapt through different stages of life. Rather than assuming they already know everything about one another, they remain open to learning. Accountability begins with curiosity. It grows through humility. It matures through consistent action. Point number 5, when children see accountability, imagine a father who accidentally breaks a promise. He promised to attend his daughter's school performance, a last-minute work emergency. He could simply avoid the conversation. Or he could say, "I disappointed you today. I know how much this meant to you. I'm sorry. I should have called sooner, and I'll do better next time." That apology teaches something far more valuable than perfection. It teaches responsibility. Children who repeatedly see accountability modeled at home learn that mistakes do not define a person's character. What defines character is the willingness to acknowledge mistakes and make them right. An old Swahili proverb says, "A child learns what he lives." Every apology your children witness becomes a lesson they may one day carry into their own marriages. Now, here's the transformation that happens when integrity becomes your reputation. Imagine a wife describing her husband. After 30 years of marriage, she doesn't say, "He never made mistakes." Instead, she says, "Whenever he made a mistake, he owned it." That reputation is priceless. Trust grows. Communication becomes easier. Conflict becomes less threatening because accountability creates predictability. Your wife knows she does not have to fight for honesty. She can expect it. And when honesty becomes predictable, emotional safety becomes natural. Integrity is not built in one grand moment. It is built through hundreds of ordinary decisions to tell the truth, accept responsibility, and keep growing. Point number 6, practical habits every husband should develop. If you want accountability to become one of your greatest strengths, at the end of every disagreement, ask yourself, what was my contribution to this conflict? Replace excuses with ownership. Explain circumstances without using them to justify hurtful behavior. Invite your wife's perspective before defending your own. Follow every sincere apology with visible action. Change behavior gives credibility to spoken words. Conduct regular personal reflection. A husband who examines himself regularly is less likely to blame others unfairly. Remember that accountability is not about carrying all the blame. It is about faithfully carrying your share. Small acts of ownership, repeated over years, build extraordinary trust. Here's the lesson to always remember as we conclude on law number 7. An old English proverb says, "A fault confessed is half redressed." There is deep wisdom in those words. Every marriage encounters disappointment. Every husband falls short. Every wife does too. The question is never whether mistakes will happen. The question is what kind of man you will become after they do. The mature husband refuses to let pride write the story of his marriage. He lets integrity write it instead, because he understands a timeless truth. A man who accepts responsibility does not lose respect. He earns it from his wife, from his children, and, perhaps most importantly, from the man he sees in the mirror. In the next video, we shall explore law number 8. But before then, let's have a quick recap of what we've covered so far. You have now discovered 7 timeless laws, presented in each episode. 1. Master yourself before you master the conversation. 2. Seek understanding before offering solutions. 3. Never turn your wife into the enemy. 4. Choose humility over pride. 5. Protect your wife's dignity through unwavering respect. 6. Understand that the right conversation deserves the right moment. 7. Build trust through unwavering accountability. But there is one final trap that continues to destroy otherwise loving marriages. It has convinced countless husbands. They think if they can just prove they're right, everything else will fall into place. But experience teaches the opposite. Sometimes the greatest defeat in marriage begins with winning the argument. That is where we continue with law number 8. Winning arguments can cost you your marriage. Thank you for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and drop your comments. Bye for now.